Hi there, this is Linda and welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you're new here. In today's video, we're going to be flipping through how May went in my journals and planners. Let's go ahead and dive right in. Okay, you guys, it is time to look through how May went in my journals and planners. As a reminder, as usual, my daily journal is here, super chunky, and I'm still working in this every day. I shared a flip through of this in a separate video, so I do have that linked in the description box below if you missed it. But in this video, I'm going to share a look at all of the rest of my journals and planners from this month. I also will put timestamps in the description box below if you want to skip to only one or a few of my journals. So May was busy. I am crazy busy at work right now, and I'm leaving on vacation in June. By the time you're seeing this, I am already on vacation. So I had a lot I had to do in May outside of my craft room in terms of work and prepping for vacation. I also had a lot going on in my craft room with Week in the Life. So I documented a Week in the Life in May, and I put that entire album together during May as well. So that took most of my creative time, especially for the second half of the month. I do have a separate video sharing a flip through of how that came together. So if you're interested in that, I'll link that in the description box below as well. So because of that, I didn't spend that much time in my journals and planners this month, but I do still have a decent amount of things to show you. Okay, so let's start with an easy one or quick one. So first, let's start with my thinking book. And May, I had all the intentions in the world to be in here and add more to it. And like I said, it was a crazy busy month. I wasn't in my books that much, and that's okay. So this is my random notes book. I add random collections, overflow thoughts, anything that doesn't really fit in any other journal. And I just want to keep it in here. A lot of that is, it's just fun to have like a collection of everything. It's nice to have stuff as a reference. If you look at like older ones, I was doing a lot more like reading and like notes from, I had a lot of notes in here from reading nonfiction. You can see here, like there's a lot of those. I had a lot of planning out albums and stories. And yeah, I really did put more in here in the past, but I haven't been doing my nonfiction reading. And, you know, oh, well, that is what it is. I just don't have the time to do all of my hobbies, but I do have just like some random notes in here. I did do some notes in here for my Week in the Life project. And then I created this Week in the Life photo tracker to plan out and print my photos. And I did that. And then I did it for Monday. And then I completely forgot that I created this tracker and printed them without a tracker. And yeah, that then I remembered later. So that's it. That's all that's in here. And that's okay. This book is not intended to finish in 2026. I feel like I'm going to just keep adding to it, and maybe I'll have more to show you after June. Okay, let's do my craft planner next. So my craft planner, again, I didn't do much in here because I did do Week in the Life, but Week in the Life was planned in advance. So here's my Week in the Life plan, and I actually planned that during April. So I referenced this and use this a bit more when working on my project. You can see I labeled each page with a letter, and that's how I labeled my photos. So I knew before I printed them which photos would go on which page, and that kind of corresponded to my tracker that I didn't use. I have like the letters. So A would have been the photo for page A, B would have been photo for page B, and so on. I didn't end up even using it, so that's fine. But the only thing I did end up doing in here is my trackers. I actually did really well in May because I did Week in the Life. I used so many products for that project. I also did a lot of other projects. I did some scrapbooking pages. I worked on my story albums. I did a lot of project life spreads. I think I did 5 project life spreads. So yeah, I got a lot done and used a lot of products. I worked on my stamp catalog system. So yeah, it was a pretty successful month for May, I actually used more Project Life cards than I had come in, so that's good. Not great on the embellishments just because so many are still coming in and I'm trying to use them and I can't use them as fast as they come in, and that's mostly because of being on creative teams for Coco Daisy and Ellie Edwards. I get so many products from them, and I did get the travel release from Ellie Edwards this month, so it was a little skewed, but hopefully in June things will be a little bit better. Okay, next is my everyday carry. So this is the journal I use in place of a Hobonichi Weeks, and this is the only one that's not working out in my system. I talk about this in all of these flip through videos, but essentially I'm not loving this as a replacement for the Hobonichi Weeks because it's undated and it's not lay flat, but otherwise it's very nice. It's a good size. I bring this with me and I use this on the go. So I use it for a calendar on the go. So I have it for that. And then I use the weekly spreads. So let's flip to the beginning of May. So I use the weekly spreads to keep track of what happened during the day. So I tend to update this every day. Some of my journals I do not get to every day. Some I only get to once a week or so. So this is the one, if I only have like 5 minutes to journal in a day, or I only have a little amount of energy, I do this one. And that's because this is what I just track kind of basic information, and then I can use this later to go back and backfill stuff. So I wrote down kind of what we do. On the right-hand side, I track some health things. I track my meals. And then I also keep track of just like whatever else I want to do. So here I was keeping track of some updates I needed to make in my house journal. Then sometimes I don't finish filling this in because this is a reference place that I use a lot of this to fill in my take a note. So sometimes towards the end of the week, I just go directly into my take a note and update that. So I don't need to put it in here first. So I tend to do this like as I'm living. If I fall behind, I won't sit down and fill this in and then fill in my take a note in the same day or sitting. This is only if I don't have time to do my take a note at the moment. And I will get to the take a note flip through next. And then, so here I started to try to do a little bit more decoration in here. In May, I used these stickers to number the dates just in hopes that would switch it up a little bit. Previous months, I was writing it out. And I went back to writing it for June for a few reasons, but I don't have like stickers for every single month, and I still didn't love it. Then here I try to do a little bit more decoration. Like I'm trying to play with it a little bit more so that I actually want to be in here. But, you know, I think I was actually in here a lot more in May. And part of that was, I think, because I was so busy, I only had small pockets of time to journal. So I would add in here. And then this was Week in the Life. So I just did not finish this because I had separate notes for Week in the Life. And you'll see that in my journals and planners that I really wasn't in any of my books during this week very much because I was so focused on that project. And then for the last week of May, it was a short work week. And I'm trying to do some like reflective journaling here during the week. And I wrote down this like random thing that was going on the internet that I just wanted to remember those little details. So just writing it down was just kind of fun. My trackers again. And that is all I put in here. I have actually started using the back pages in June, but I didn't use them in May. So I'll share that when we get to it in June. Now let's move on to my take a note. So this is my functional planner. And I also use it for tracking memory keeping items. You'll see that when we get into this. So this first page here, this is an exercise tracker. And I don't update this every day. I tend to come back to it only like once a week or so, but I have an Apple Watch, so that kind of gives me the information, but I track my steps and my activity. And then this is a tracker for what I did during the day. So like what was the bulk of my day, just to kind of get a feel for like why I'm so tired or why I feel like I don't have much time. So focused, basically I pick one color that's like the overall color for the day. And that just kind of guides where my time went. And then I make notes if something really impacted my day significantly, but not enough to change the color. So blue, the darker blue means I was in the office, so I was working, and that took most of my day. The light blue means I'm working, but from home, which usually means I'm less exhausted at the end of the day because there's not the commute, there's not as much social interaction. You know, I can wear comfy pants, but it's still working. Purple means I spent most of the day at home or as crafting, so usually at home. So you can see I have a lot of purple because I am a super homebody and I spend so much time at home. And then pink means I was busy or out doing something with friends or doing something else that like took the majority of the day. There's not a lot of that. A couple of them are like friends things, or my daughter. But usually if I have something, like if I see a friend for like a couple of hours, I won't put that because it's not the majority of the day. So like I put when I went to Socrates with Jen and Jen because that basically took the entire day. Or I put Summer came over this day because it was basically the entire day. This one I put she came over, but it was purple because she just came for dinner. Or like here I had dinner with friends, but it was also a telecommute day and that was really just after it. So I wanted to make a note of it because it would impact my energy and where my time went, but it wasn't the main thing of the day. The purple also is just being at home, but you know, sometimes we get groceries, so that does take a couple hours out of the day. I had a doctor's appointment, I did yard work, so just keeping track of those things. And then the lime color is for travel. So we traveled in the beginning of the year. I took a quick work trip here, and then we're gonna travel again in June. And that really does impact my energy levels. So just seeing that pattern is really helpful. So then we have the monthly calendar. And, oh wait, I apologize. At the bottom here, these are my long-term trackers that are for like long-term cleaning, things that I don't do super often. And I just kind of put them where I thought I would like to do them. I don't always get to everything. This is like the goal. So I will write it in if I did it, but otherwise I just kind of leave it. If I end up migrating it, I will mark that, but nothing's been migrated. And then, so here we're back on my monthly calendar page. So this is my main functional planner for future planning. I also put everything in here for the calendar pages. So I'm just gonna bring it back so you can see them. They're usually the same, and that's because this is for on the go and this is at home. Sometimes I will have more details in here because there's more space, but typically I put them the same because it's kind of like this is what I want to reference. Like if I'm out and I need to make a doctor's appointment, I want to see what I have going on. And then if I am home and I want to make a doctor's appointment, this is what I'm going to reference. I do put work appointments in here, but I don't write what they are because I do have a separate planner for work that I don't share on the internet. But what I do is put them in here because, for example, here I had a meeting at 1:30. So if I needed to make a doctor's appointment, I know I have to be in the office at that time. So I couldn't double book myself. Otherwise, I can make my doctor's appointment and then just leave the office for it. And so that's just kind of how I keep track of that. In this column here, I write what kit or products I'm going to use for my Project Life. I don't do set weekly spreads for Project Life, but I usually follow about a weekly spread. So it tends to kind of line up. Like this week I used that kit, I switched them. This week I used this kit. This week I said to do week in life supplies, but I think I did, but I kind of didn't use that many products. And then this final week I used the May Stories by the Month kit. To set these up, I used the kits from the Coffee Monster Co. And these are the ones that were set up for the Hobonichi cousin, and I feel like they fit the best in here. I'm not actually sure if that's the one that Helen suggests, but I like the way that it fits in here. On the sidebar, I put my cleaning tracking. And so I put just kind of like my routine cleaning and my tasks. I do get sometimes questions, people ask like, why do I put, or what do I write here? And this matches my house. So it's like the places in my house that I would clean. So if you were going to do something similar, it should be kind of whatever you clean in your house. And then for that would be like the stuff you want to clean every month. And then down here is the stuff that I do only so often. And a lot of these get pulled from these spreads in the beginning, or it might be something else that ends up on my task list that's not cleaning related. And then at the top, I put some golds. So then we move into the weekly spreads. And let's see, that's still April. So the weekly spreads in here have, let's go to a blank one. So we have a vertical weekly or a horizontal weekly, which kind of matches the Hobonichi weeks. So you have kind of like a similar setup. It's slightly smaller. This one is slightly bigger than a Hobonichi weeks though. So it is about the size of a Hobonichi weeks of the horizontal. And then you have a column per day, which is a half of an A5. I use this for my functional daily task list and my functional kind of weekly planning and tracking. And then I also add in here my memory keeping. So this week was partially April and partially May. So you can see I have some task lists. I'm guessing I didn't finish it in the April one to share. I'm not sure where I left off. So I'm just going to show these last April spreads in case you missed those. And then, so I have my tracking. I have habit tracking and my yard. This is new now that we're in spring. I have to track like watering the plants. And then I have just kind of like my appointments and a task list for the week. Each day I do my task list at the top if I have one. Sometimes I'm not in my planner. So like here, I wasn't in my planner at all because I was in my work planner because I was at work. So I do, if I'm working from home, I tend to use this planner for like any personal stuff I have going on because I tend to have more time and energy on my work from home days to do both. But on my office days, I'm not at home. I don't take this with me, so I usually don't use it. Even if I do have a few little tasks to do, often I don't write them down because I'll just kind of remember. And then when I'm done with the week, I will fill in the rest of the page with a reminder of kind of like just facts of what I did and some photos. So I'm using the same clear sticker paper that I use. It's not clear, sorry. The glossy sticker paper that I use in my journal. And this is a newer paper to me. I will link in the description box below. And then I usually pick a color scheme for the week. So this week I was using this green fountain pen and a marker. I'm thinking that that was a Tombow dual brush pen with this blue, which was a mild liner. I also add in stickers. A lot of those are from the Coffee Monster Co., but I add in all sorts of stickers that I have in my stash just to kind of illustrate what happened. I like to do some doodles and stuff when I can, when I see something I can draw, or I feel like there's something I have the time to do or the energy I feel like doing it. Other times I don't, like this week I didn't do this part, I didn't do any drawing on, but I will add like larger titles or something just to create some interest. And then of course I try to do a photo per day. This week I use this cute washi tape. I really love this one. And so I try to kind of create a color scheme for the week. So this week I pulled out of this the green and the tan. And then I use this blue ink from Ferris Wheel Press to do some journaling. Adding in washi tape and just having fun kind of playing with the spread and decorating it. Again, using fountain pen for my journaling, but then I tend to not use fountain pen for this. Actually, I think I was here, but I tend to use either just black or a gel pen if I'm doing this part for doing the like task list, because I often will add to this throughout the day or throughout the week. And so I don't want a pen that I'm not necessarily going to have available. Like if I write this on Monday, I want to be able to write Wednesday. So then when I'm doing the journaling part, I tend to do the entire week in one sitting. So it's not the same where I can just pick a pen and I will stick with it. And then this week I actually did only the first half of the week and then I came back into the second half. So this one has a different style and a different ink, but I usually we'll use the same style. So like for this week, you can see I just continued the colors into the second spread for the week, but other weeks I don't do that. This one was one where I just switched it up entirely, just depending on how I'm feeling. And then this was the week in the life week, so I just didn't come back and fill this in. I used it for my functional planning, but I didn't do any memory keeping in here. I don't know that I will come back and do it. I wanted to have like this entire book filled out at the end of the year. There is still some vacation gaps in February, but most of it is filled in. So I might want to do this just because I don't want it to be a gap at the end of the year, but at the same time, this week is already super documented, so maybe I'll come up with something else to do here. Let me know if you have any ideas for what I should do for this week. And then finishing up May, I was just playing with a little bit more of like a rainbow and just kind of funkier for this spread. And these, I'm using the Sharpie Creative markers. Those are paint pens. You know, a lot of people use the Posca paint pens, but I really prefer the Sharpie Creative markers. I have all the Posca paint pens too, and then I switched. The only thing that I think the Posca paint pens are better is they have a wider selection of colors, but the Sharpie Creative markers, they did come out with some additional colors fairly recently, so I'm hoping that they will continue to come out with some new ones. And then that is going to wrap up the end of the week, and then we'll move into June with the next spread. Okay, so the last book I have to look at is my 5-year journal. So this is getting a little bit of chunk, and the chunk is coming at the top only because this is 2026. So this is a 5-year journal that I started this year. So the first, like only the first year is filled in, and I am seeing that uneven chunk, which I think is kind of funny. So if you are new here, what I do for the 5-year journal is some days I do, well, if you're new to the 5-year journal, this is essentially what a day looks like. There's a page per day, and you've got 5 years in here. I started with 2026. Then you have a blank page on this side that you can do whatever you want with. So a lot of people just do like journaling each day or reflection on their day or just thoughts or something. And I'm doing that for about half of my days. But for the other ones, I am doing some prompts. So on the first of the month, I'm using the right-hand side to create my prompt list for the month. So I have quite a bit of prompts for May. It's probably about like half the days I try to do a prompt. So on May 1st, I did handwriting practice, and I thought this would be kind of fun to just write like this sentence, which is a sentence that uses every single letter of the alphabet. And so I did that with like lowercase and uppercase, and then I wrote the alphabet out. I thought it would be fun to just see how my handwriting evolves over time. And then for the second, I decided to go with accomplishments. So because this is the first year in here, I have to come up with the prompts on the days I want prompts. And then I think it'll be kind of fun in next year to flip to it and say, oh, what's my prompt for tomorrow? So I'm just going to write down like what I accomplished that day. And then on the 3rd, I did a currently list. And I also created this. This was inspired by Natasha in Your Phone. She does something similar on her 5-year journal. And so I decided to do it just this day. I'm not using this side every day. I'm using it only occasionally. And then I feel like in future years, I might add more to it, but we'll see. And then sometimes I just do basic journaling about the day without a prompt. So that's what those days were. Here I decided to do my most recent purchase, and I doodled it this year, but I might do something different in the future. More journaling. Currently, I decided to do reading, watching, and eating. And then I put some of the like tiny icon stickers from the Coffee Monster Co. here. And I'm using that just as a prompt. And I just decided to set up all the years at once in case I don't have those sticker sheets anymore. But I'm not doing that for most of the years. Here, I just decided to do kind of like big words and some thoughts like that. So I might follow that same style in future years. I might not. We'll see. And then I created a setup over here for today's step count. Sticker bomb. I've been doing this like one day a month to just kind of use random stickers, and it's a great way to use like the last sticker on a sticker sheet or ones that I might not otherwise use. Like this little seahorse is super cute, but when do I ever need a seahorse sticker? The answer is never. So using it here is a great way to kind of use that. And then I've been doing this style the entire time. I've been just kind of playing around with doing some like doodles and creative icons and stuff to kind of tell the story of my day. And when I'm doing this, I'm thinking I'm going to follow the similar pattern in future years, but we'll see it when we get there. This was my house anniversary. So this was 6 years since I bought my house, or yeah, closed on my house. So I built my house. It was prior to that I started building it. But what I decided to do is just some reflections on kind of projects around the house, and then a photo of my home now. And then I think maybe I'll add a photo each year. And then here I did the prompt, excited about making. Another just doodle day. Okay, so on the 15th of every month, I have been doing one little word, and I just totally forgot about that this month. So I just did some journaling about coffee, because I set up a new espresso machine, and I decided to do my current coffee, like what's my go-to drink at home. And so I thought that would be fun to see if it changes, or it might not. And then on the 16th was my daughter's birthday. She turned 21. So obviously I'm going to journal about that. And then I think I'm going to include a photo of her each year with her age and the date. Here we have my currently inked fountain pens. And this is actually really nice to have, because I also use this as a reference for like just remembering what's in my current pens. So I tend to do this about once a month when I change my inks. And then just some journaling. And then on this side, I decided to do a week in the life reflection, because I typically document that in May. I follow whenever Allie Edwards picks the project, but I figured I would do it on this day. And if in future years we don't document this week, I'll just come back to this page to fill this in when I do. And I'm basically writing what were the dates, the format I did, and just some thoughts about the project. Another just kind of doodled day. So because I forgot to do one little word on the 15th, I decided to move it to the 20th, but then I never did it. So I have that in here. I may or may not come back to doing the May prompt. I looked at it, but that's it. I'm not sure if I will come back to do it. If not, I will just leave it blank and use this in the future to do one little word. We'll see. On this day, I decided to do my to-do list for the day, which I thought would be a really fun, just kind of different thing. I essentially just copied it over from my take a note and then checked off what I actually did. For this day, I wanted to do something quick, so I just doodled the day of the week, because the day of the week changes every year. So I think that means that the 22nd will be a Saturday next year. I know it switches by one day. I just never can remember which direction, except for leap year. It switches by 2. But anyway, so I will just write that in each day, and that's just a simple way to fill a page. Some more journaling. Once a month, I've been doing this where I do just like my current favorite washi. It's a good way to use some of my washi and just kind of see how my style is changing. So then this was Memorial Day, so we decided to do just some journaling about that. And then I decided to do a Memorial Day reflection page. Memorial Day is going to change dates every year, so the 25th will not be Memorial Day, because Memorial Day is always on the last Monday, and like I said, the day of the week changes. But I'm just going to do some Memorial Day reflections here, so I will just write like, oh, Memorial Day 2027 was May 26th, and here were my plans for that day. Here I just did my daily step count. Some more journaling. Current things that were currently bringing me joy. Just some big words about the day. And then I have, you've probably noticed through looking through my journals, that this is kind of like a new style of handwriting that I've been doing the past few weeks. And so I decided to do like a current favorite EDCs, because I do kind of switch up my styles of like large letters. So it'll be fun to see kind of what is like my go-to style in 2027. And then I just totally skipped this day, which is fine. I might come back and fill it in now that it's June, in the beginning of June right now. Or I might just leave it and then next year I might fill it in, or I might just never fill it in, and that's okay. And then for the last day of the month, every month I've been doing a recap with 3 things that happened that month and a photo of me. So that is going to wrap up May in here. We are almost halfway through the first year of this journal. Super exciting. So that was a look at my journals and planners for May 2026. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them down below. And as always, thank you guys so much for being here. Bye.